We as a community, okay, thank you. Sorry, I should have started recording. We as a community, administrators of this community, are committed to building and growing this community. And we recognize that it's not, the community doesn't grow if only one person is growing. We need each and every one of us to be thriving in our different spaces so that when we call for things to happen, collectively in our different strengths, we become a voice to be reckoned with. And one of the major challenges we find in our community is the fact that people don't have time because they're trying to hustle and, do 2 or 3 or 4 odd jobs that are not in their calling, rather than focusing and growing their career path, which will help them earn the 6 figures, the 7 figures, and give them time to really thrive, I know the hustle is different here, but Canada is not about stuff ahead now. It's about us coming to live our best lives. So this particular session, we will be having Resume Clinic as often as possible throughout the rest of this year. But what we really want to do is have the opportunity to give relevant information that is for us, by us, guaranteed to help us thrive in our career path. And so while we are grateful for you being here, we don't want to just talk. We want to engage. We want you guys to ask questions so that we have an idea of what the pain point is and where we can come in, find information that is relevant, that will truly support you, so that as a community, when we have events, we can say, you people will come out as ballers concerned. You guys will come out and really show up and show out. So thank you all for coming, and I really encourage your questions and engagement within this session. With me today, I only call her Auntie Sheyi. Says I should increase my volume so you can hear me well. Can you hear me better now? Thank you very much. I tend to talk fast when I'm excited, and I'm really excited about today's session because perhaps I'm also a HR professional, so this is one that is very dear and close to my heart. And so I am totally excited that we have people on here today willing to listen to Sheyi. Sheyi is a HR professional with over a decade's experience in the food and nutrition industry, in the oil and gas sector, in finance. What it basically means is that she is all-rounder in whatever industry that you think you are in. Sheyi has been there, done that, bought the t-shirts. And she's ready to give you really relevant information that will help you thrive. She's also a certified HR professional after getting her postgraduate degree from the Conestoga College in Human Resource Management. Sheyi is here this afternoon. I don't want to talk too much. I want Sheyi to have as much time as possible to give her presentation. Please put your questions in the chat. I will read them to her after the session. And after the session, we'll also have a Q&A session for us to ask questions. The session is being recorded and will also be uploaded to our YouTube channel. So for those who can't make it, you can tell them to afford themselves of the opportunity to watch the recording from our YouTube channel. So Sheyi, over to you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. And I want to thank you for joining and on time. It shows that this topic is important to you, and it's also important to the NIROW Board of Directors as well, because like Blessing said, we haven't come here to come and suffer. We're Nigerians originally, and back home in Nigeria, I'm sure quite a number of us have had our own fair share of struggles. So it wouldn't speak well if we go through all that struggle and then we come here and we're struggling again. The struggle should be reduced, not increased, if you get what I mean. And I'm hoping that this session would be of value to everyone in the room. And I'm going to leave time, like Blessing said, there will be time to ask questions, because after going through the content, which I know that will be familiar with almost everyone in the room, on some level, but this, for some people, is going to be a refresher. For some people, it's just kind of like a relearning. But at the end of the session, we would, entertain questions and practical questions and, your pain points, and see how we can speak to that. And even over and above this session, if there are resources and materials that can help you going forward, we can share that with you after this session. It's not a one and done session. We will continue to do this as time moves on. So I will just go ahead and share my screen and start discussing what we have to do today. So just a second. Once you do see the screen, you see the slides pop up, please just use your reaction buttons, to thumbs up so that I can proceed. Okay.
We can see the screen if you want to do a PowerPoint, presentation mode.
Yeah, it's in presentation mode now. Okay, so we're here to talk about how to write a winning resume and cover letter. This topic has been discussed over and over, and it will never go out of fashion because the resume is really a document that markets you and talks about what you can do and your potential and the value that you can add to an organization when you're not there. So it's really what helps you get a foot in the door and helps you get a call back. Now, depending on the region or the location that you're in and which part of the world you come from, resumes and cover letters are kind of like structured differently. And so one of the things that you have to learn when you immigrate to a country like Canada is that you have to relearn how the resume is structured, what's important to have in it and what's not important to have in it. So let's just move on. What we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about the features of a Canadian style resume. We'll also talk about why your resume doesn't get a call back. So I'm sure some of us in the room have been applying for positions in different companies and industries, but we don't get a call back. So we will talk about some of those reasons why our resumes haven't been getting that call back that we need. We're going to talk about some tips to make our resume ATS friendly. As we know, Canada is a country that is very technologically driven, and in HR as well. The HR function in most companies, they've looked at how they can improve their processes. And a key process in the HR function is recruitment. So the question about how we're going to recruit better, and that's where technology came in, and we have the ATS, which is the applicant tracking system. So you submit your resume, and then the ATS has been configured to look for certain things on the resume, making sure that the resume the ATS is configured to look for certain types of resumes in a different structure, in a certain form, and has certain words and all that. So we'll talk about how you can make your resume more ATS friendly. We'll also talk about the cover letter. We'll talk about what's covered in the cover letter and how you can make your cover letter really stand out. We'll also talk about a few job search strategies. Job search is a job in itself, so we're not going to go deep into that. We'll just touch on that a little, and then we would open the floor to get your comments and get some personal questions as it relates to your job search experience here in Canada. So the Canadian style resume, what does it look like? The general features of the Canadian style resume, it's brief. I found that even with professionals in different industries, in different professions that have years and decades of experience, somehow they're still able to condense their resume into 2 pages or maximum 3 pages. I've seen 4 pages before, but the average is 2, maximum of 3. So if you say, oh, you've come from Nigeria and you've had like 10 years, even 15 years of experience, and you want to cram all that into like 3 or 4 pages, it's just a lot of work for the HR team or for the recruiter or the hiring manager. So we're going to talk about how we can make that brief, precise, to the point, and tailored to the role that you're applying to. Canadian style resumes are skill and competency focused. They're not totally generalist in nature. Now, some resumes can be generalist in nature. So that means if you want to generalize your resume to roles that are kind of like broad in nature, but sometimes depending on the role that you're interested in, you might want to consider narrowing or making your CV niche, like really specific to the role when you look at the job description and what they're looking for that role. We're going to talk about also what should be in the resume in terms of, your contact address, your phone, your email. So instead of just talking through this, what I will just do is to flash my screen and show what a Canadian style resume looks like in a sense, and then I will talk through the headers instead of reading this slide out to you. So just let me stop sharing one moment and then share the mock resume that I have. Do let me know if you can see it. A few thumbs up would be great. All right, okay. Right. So this is what a standard Canadian style resume looks like. Now, a disclaimer. There are 3 different types of resume. Theoretically speaking, there's the chronological resume that really speaks to when you started working. So your job experience from when you started working up to your most recent experience. So on your resume, you kind of like list out your roles, where and when, and things like that. And then there's the skill related resume that really doesn't speak to it. It's not really focused on how long you have spent on each role or where. It really speaks to the skills and maybe the projects that you worked on. And that's really more tailored to people who have specialized skill sets in industry. It's not very common, but there's some resumes that look like that. And then you have the resume types that are a combination of the two, and that's what's the most common. So like what I have on my screen, I know there's some people in the room that are students of Conestoga. You may or you may not have seen this resource I'm sharing before. You may not have seen it before, but this is a very good example of what your resume should look like in terms of content. Maybe not necessarily style, because there are different styles and different looks, but in terms of content. So at the top, you see the name of the person, student or dente, whatever pronunciation you want to use. What I would say to this, I see, okay, great. You've seen it. What I would say to the name is, I have seen resumes where I don't know the difference between the first name and the last name of the resume owner. Everything is in caps. Now, you see here that the first name is the first letter of each of the names are capitalized. So when you see it, it's easy to kind of like, guess what the first name is. Now, for some of us, our resumes have our first name. Now, my name, for example, my first name is a little long, and then my second name is a compound name. My last name is a compound name, and it's an essay. So it's Olufikayo-Olabiyi, Olabiyi. And then you can imagine me having that at the top of my resume in caps, bold, all the words in caps. Any recruiter that sees that will be like, okay, what's her first name? So even though we know that the first name is the first one, everything being in caps is not really a good look. So what you might want to do is capitalize the first letter. And in capitalizing the first letter of your first name, you might want to make the font of the entire name a little smaller. So maybe like a font 10, for example. And then you can have your surname, it can be all caps, and then you make it slightly larger. It kind of like differentiates the name, and it also enhances the look. Then you have your contact address. Now this has a street number, a street name, and then the city. You necessarily don't have to put that. I have come to learn it's not really an issue. So you're also trying to maximize space and ensure that relevant information is on your resume. So you can just put the city and the province, that's all. So Cambridge, ON, that, and everybody knows what ON means. So, and you just move on. Your email, your phone number, and your LinkedIn profile. This is really important, because the recruiter who are looking at your resume can click on it and it takes them to LinkedIn, and then they can see your profile. And then we move straight to objectives. Now, your objective I would rather say you should change your objective to kind of like a career profile, your professional profile that speaks to your particular strengths in terms of your profession. So I see people's objectives, and I've come to the conclusion that some people just put objectives because they feel like it's a nice to have or it's a must have. But every information you put on your CV has to be purposeful, and it has to be valuable, and it has to kind of like lead, to the role that you're applying for. So putting ambiguous words where you say you're a professional with 10 years of experience or 5 years of experience and to meet organizational objectives, I'm sure you get what I mean. There's some objectives that are like kind of like ambiguous in nature. Like you probably could have picked it up off the internet and it has big words and you feel like, oh, when they read it, they're going to be impressed. They probably will not be impressed. I think you should make your objective or your career profile very personal to you. 2 to 3 sentences that speak to your expertise as a professional in that field and how it relates to that job. It can be a lot of work, but I mean that's what good resumes really speak to. When you see a good resume, you know that a lot of time and effort has been put into crafting the resume. So please let your objectives or your career profile, let it be purposeful, okay? So that, whoever is looking at your resume would be engaged by what they see. Next is summary of skills. So when you have your name, your contact address, and then your career summary, I'm not really crazy about the word objective. It's very mainstream, so you might want to change to professional profile or career profile or professional summary, to just encapsulate your experience in 2 to 3 sentences. Next, you have your summary of skills. You can make again, if you're applying to a role that you really feel that you're a good fit for, or you're applying to a company that that values resonate with you, and you're like, I would really love to work in this company, then you go and check out the job description, look for the skills that they're looking for, and try to see how you can summarize those skills in here. You can make them like 4 or 5 bullet point skills, and don't make it too long. Summary of skills and then education. Make it brief. Put your most recent education, and then you can put. So maybe I know most people that are in Conestoga, they probably have a first degree already. So put what you're doing at Conestoga, and then put your first degree. We don't need to see your secondary school education. You don't need to go that far. Just put your most recent education and maybe the one just before it, and try to make it as concise as possible. What your specialization and when you did it. If you're graduated, you just put 2017 to whenever it is. If you have an expected graduation date, you can put it there and say in view, and then you can just highlight the major parts of the course that especially is linked to the job that you're applying for. Again, everything that you put on your resume has to be purposeful. You're not just putting a resume for the sake of putting together a resume. It has to be targeted. Now, this resume that I'm sharing on my screen is obviously is obviously tailored from a person that doesn't have a lot of work experience. So now I would say if you had some previous work experience, after your skills, put your work experience, and then you can put your education right at the bottom. But for this mock resume that I'm sharing with you, the person put the education, which is not bad. But then again, we have so many applicants trying to catch the eye of the recruiter, of the hiring manager. So I would recommend that you bump up your work experience right after your summary of skills or your competencies. Some people put it as competencies on their resume. So there is the education, and then this academic projects. I want to speak to this. If the role that you're applying for has no bearing to the academic projects that you did in school, please do not include it. Like I said, every piece of information that you put in on your resume has to be purposeful and has to link to the role that you're applying for. So you're not putting information in there so that because you think that they're going to read through everything and then they'll be wowed by the fact that you did one project that took you like 2 years and you had to go to the forest to source for specimens and things like that, and you spent a lot of time in the laboratory. If all those things, which I'm not downplaying the achievements and all the efforts that goes into those projects. I studied biochemistry as my first degree, so I know what it means to spend time in the lab running analysis and doing all of that. But if it's not relevant to the role that you're applying for, please take it out. Please take it out. You need the space for more valuable information that can help your application. And then professional experience, that speaks to the work experience. Like I said, please move it up to the first page because recruiters and hiring managers, they don't have a lot of time. So they need their eyes to be on the most important information. Essentially what I'm saying is if you have a 2-page resume, put the most important information on the first page. Now, additional employment history. Now we see this person here has done some kind of internship and volunteer work. In this environment, volunteer work, community development contributions as individuals is highly regarded. So I always tell people when they come out, like, join a club, volunteer somewhere, go to the Kitchener-Waterloo Multicultural Center, find out how you can volunteer, put it on your resume. Because in doing all this things in volunteering, you are gaining skills that can be transferable, presentation skills, public speaking skills, organizational skills. So even if you have not cultivated those skills in an actual 9-to-5 job, but because you have spent time doing some volunteer work, which is still work, even though you're not paid for it, you can put it on your resume. It also gives the impression that you see beyond yourself, and it's highly regarded in this area. So if you haven't started thinking about volunteering, I mean, like, blessings, I know that we have bills to pay. We all came into this country under different circumstances. So financially speaking, we may just be like building ourselves from the ground up. But please, let's consider it and do take some time to do some volunteer work. I find that it's highly regarded, and if it's on your resume, it will be looked upon favorably. There's also professional development and training. You may not necessarily need to put that there, but if you don't have a lot of work experience, you can put it in there, but then again, like I said, every subheading in your resume has to be purposeful and has to have some linkage to the skill and the behaviors that they're looking for in the person that will eventually get the job. And then there's activities and interest. And then in this resume, we have a statement here that says references and portfolio gladly provided upon request. So I'll stop sharing this now and then go back to the slides. I'm trying to be mindful of the time. And again, I'm going to share that resume at the end of the session. Someone was saying something.
Can I say a few things just, to highlight what you shared on the resume? Because after some time spent as a talent acquisition specialist, one of the things I realized trips us up, especially Africans, like Sheyi said, using big words, to try to make up resume look more professional. There really isn't a need for that. Then when you put in a LinkedIn profile, we will go to search sometimes, even when you've not put it. But if you put in a LinkedIn profile on your resume, it's fair game. And what I mean by that is, especially for most of us who already have some prior experience from Nigeria, what you should be putting on your resume is relevant information for that particular role. So like Sheyi said, you want to be sure that you're putting in the most important information that is intentional towards what you want to get. And what you really want to get with your resume is a call for an interview. what I always suggest to people from our community and other internationally trained professionals is have an e-portfolio, even if it's a Dropbox or something, and put that instead. That way you have tailored information to that specific role. Once you go on LinkedIn and I see information that is not relevant to that role, that can knock you out of the running. So, for example, like Shayi said, she was a biochemist with her first degree, but now she's a HR professional. If I go on her LinkedIn and I see biochemistry and all of that, meanwhile, she's applying for a HR professional role, I might just be like, and then knock her off. And you really don't want to be updating your LinkedIn profile every single time. It makes you look, So instead, have your e-portfolio and a link to that. That way, you show me only what you want me to see. And most likely, if I've seen that, I probably will not go and look for something else on LinkedIn. I just wanted to add that extra bit. Shay, please go on.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move forward. Okay, so let's talk about some of the reasons why your resume may not get a call back. Now there's a lot of reasons for, but just these are some of the ones I have put together, and the ones that I highlighted in yellow are kind of like the ones that I come across a lot. Your resume is too generic and it's not targeted to the industry or the job. And I'm not going to dwell too much on that because I've already kind of like touched on that, and Blessing just shed more light on it. You can't say you are looking for a role in project management and your past experience has been, administration, you're an administrative professional, and everything about your profile is riddled with that, and your resume. So even if you are moving out of administration as your core profession and moving into project management, for example, what relevant experience or skills do you have? That's what should be on your resume. Not you are applying for a project management role and I'm just saying you're a customer service agent. There is a way you can be creative about the skills that you have, cultivated or gotten from doing those jobs that can be transferable into project management. There's a way you can put it in your resume. But if your work experience speaks to administrative professional and says nothing about the role that you are applying for, then you're already out of the running. Spelling errors and typos. When you put together your resume, and trust me, putting together a good resume takes a lot of time. It's work. I'm not going to sit down here and say it's not work. It's work. But what you can do is when you're done, flip it over to somebody. That doesn't have to be like a talent acquisition person. You flip it over to someone else to look at it for errors and typos. And you can also do the person a favor and say, can we swap resumes and see, so that it does take some time, so the person doesn't feel like, oh, what am I getting in return? So you can offer to the person, I can check your resume for typos and spelling errors. So this is one reason why, this is one thing. It sounds very trivial, but sometimes, you just want to, sometimes recruiters or hiring managers, your resume markets you. So if I'm seeing typo and spelling errors, I'm not going to think this person is not, detailed enough or didn't, take the time, and I'm like, why would I want to pick shortlist someone's resume over someone that, went through and there's no typo, there's no error and things like that. It's the little things, the devil is in the detail. Inappropriate buzzwords and industry jargon. Now going back to that, trying to impress and then putting in words and sentences and terms that, really don't, they don't really speak to the job. You are just putting in there because they will see it and it's a big word, you think they'll be impressed. Sometimes it doesn't take a lot to impress people. Just go straight to the point, and speak to what they're looking for. When you use acronyms and abbreviations, I got to Canada and I found out that there are a lot of acronyms and abbreviations. Even I am an HR professional and I'm still getting used to the acronyms and abbreviations. When you're putting some terms on your resume, please, explain it in full, put it out in full. Don't put WHO. Not everybody knows that WHO is World Health Organization. Put World Health Organization. Don't put WHO. Don't put LTD. Not everybody, LTD has different meanings, okay? LTD could mean limited, it could mean long-term disability. So always ensure that when you're putting any word that seems like, oh, there's an abbreviation, you think they should know, they might not necessarily know. You might want to, break that word open into that abbreviation, that acronym up into, the full words. Missing dates. For instance, you have your work experience and then you put the dates, but the dates are missing or the dates are not consistent, it's going to raise a red flag. Multiple fonts. The look and feel of your resume really matters. How your resume is structured, apart from what is on the resume, is also really, really important. So when you're using a font, please be consistent all through, okay? And don't use Calibri here and then you go and use Tahoma the next page. It jumps out. You think that these things don't jump out, they jump out. And sometimes some applicant tracking systems, ATS, have been configured, against certain fonts. So you might also be edging yourself out of the running if your fonts are not compliant, in quotes. So please go back to your resume right now and see if you are using multiple fonts. Please be consistent with one font. Irrelevant information, I'm not going to dwell on that. Meaningless objectives, I already talked about that. You read some objectives and you're just like, next. So again, I'm suggesting try to use professional summary or career profile and let it be personal to you. It's your personal story. I am an HR professional with this. I have this skill to solve this issue. All these organizational something. Try to think of something that you were especially proud of in the past, maybe a project you're part of. What was the outcome of that? And try to craft something. People like stories, they like something personal. So if you can, put something engaging that hooks the reader, whoever is looking at whoever is reviewing your resume, it will really go a long way. Again, all these are not guarantees, but they enhance, they accelerate the chances of getting a call back. So I know that some of you are like, I think my resume is fine. People have told me my resume is fine, and please stay on that track. Continue to do the right things. But if you're not doing the right things at all, you're definitely not going to stand a chance. Lack of white space. So white space means, again, speaking to the structure of your resume, how the resume looks. Is it jam-packed with information and everything is so, it's like the reviewer is just looking like, where does this start and where does this end? There has to be, white space. There has to be spaces that kind of like delineate one subheading from the next subheading, and the flow, and it like the symmetry of the resume goes well with the eyes. I hope I explained that well. I think the mock resume that I shared has some, some white space in terms of the margins and all of that. So you really want to go back to your resume to ensure that it's justified and it kind of like flows well and reads well. Disorganized layout and presentation. Some of us, in a bid to be different, we use different styles, different template styles, where there are some lines here, some tables here, and so we kind of like put all that information in different boxes. If you're going to use those kind of, I call them like complex templates, if you use those kind of, and you're not going the simple route, please do it very well. Because if it's disorganized and it goes through an ATS, an applicant tracking system, it might scramble the entire resume, and your resume won't even be, it will just give an error and it will probably just be skipped, okay? Gimmicks such as photos, bright paper, colored paper, please just, sometimes it's just nice to keep it simple and straight to the point. And then missing keywords. This speaks to the job description. We see a role that we're interested in and we just go pick our resume. We don't even, again, I know that it's a lot of work. When you see a role that you truly like, especially with a company that you share their values and you're like, it would be great if I work for this company, that is when you should take the time to go through your resume, that resume that you have on hand in your folder on your laptop, to see if that resume really speaks to that role. Otherwise, you have to read the job description and the person's specification, the kind of person they are looking for, and see if your resume speaks to it. If not, you will need to tweak the resume. Yes, it's a lot of work, but it is what it is. You will need to tweak the resume and pick keywords from that job description, and plug them into your resume. I'm not saying you should lie. I'm not saying you should fabricate. I'm just saying ensure that when you're crafting your resume, especially for a role that you're particularly interested in, and you know that you're a fit, you know that you're a fit for that role, then you need to put in the extra time and effort before you send out your resume and your cover letter. Okay, applicant tracking system. We love it, we hate it, but a lot of companies use it because there are a lot of applicants out there these days, both qualified and not qualified, that apply for positions. And so the HR function has deployed technology to help the process move more smoothly. So what can you do so that when the ATS sees your resume and scans it, it would move it forward to where a human can, then actually take a look at your resume. So what do? Choose the right fonts. Here are some fonts that I know that are ATS, I have found that are ATS friendly, and with some research as well. Arial, Calibri, Franklin, Gothic, Helvetica, those fonts. Margins as well. It should be 1 inch on both sides and top and bottom. I definitely can't explain how that looks, but if you're very familiar with Microsoft Word and all the tools in the toolbar, you can go to the margin part and then make sure that this happens when you're structuring your resume and you're justifying the document. Stay between 10.5 and 12-point font. And again, I talked about your first name and your last name, making it easy to identify. On your resume, use powerful action verbs. I do have a document that I will send to everyone that everyone can have access to. It's a list of action verbs from A to Z, and you can plug that in your resume when you're putting together your skills and your work experience, to all those action words that help you to stand out, and the ATS will pick up and move it forward. Avoid complicated jargon. Avoid using tables, columns, headers and footers. Simple. Just keep it simple. Avoid italics and lines. Avoid complex bullets as well, because then again, not all applicant tracking systems are configured the same. So the simpler the structure of your resume, the better. So here are some powerful action verbs that you can use on your resume. I will just move on because I'm going to share this presentation, this deck, to everyone after the session. So I'm not going to dwell on this. Some more tips that you, in terms of your putting together your resume. I already talked about reading the job posting and targeting your resume to the company that you're applying to. Now, I know that you can't do this for every role that you're applying to. What I would suggest is to have one generic resume. So I will use HR professional. So I'm most familiar with HR roles. So if, for instance, I'm an HR professional and I'm here in Canada, I'm looking for a role, I would have a generic resume that speaks to maybe that speaks to HR generalist, coordinator, BP roles, just roles that are like generic in nature that would cause you to maybe touch on different aspects of HR in that role. But if there is a role in HR that is specialist in nature, maybe like a talent acquisition specialist, a leadership development, a training officer, or something that is specific, a specialization within that profession. And I've had some experience in the past, maybe as a generalist, then I would have to tweak my resume to speak to that role. Because if I make it generic in nature, and there are other resumes, there are other applicants that have tailored their resume to have information that fits those roles, then I mean, it's obvious that those that have more tailored resumes would, move cross through that stage and move forward in the process. I already talked about objectives not really needed, just substitute with a career summary or professional profile. Take advantage of transferable skills, either in your internship roles or in your volunteer roles. There are skills that you would have learned that are also skills that are required in the role you're looking for, and find a way to weave those skills into your resume and your cover letter as well. Don't just write your duties. Now, I see a lot of, the majority of resumes that I have seen in the past is they just list out what the job does, the responsibilities of the job. I would suggest that you change those responsibilities into things that you've actually achieved on the road, things that you actually did in terms of, on this role as a banking officer or as a financial advisor, I was able to advise 200 clients and bring in, so amount of funds under management, things like that. So looking at the example that we have on the screen, greeted and checked in clients. Okay. But we've seen how that statement was enhanced, greeted and checked in 50 clients daily, providing a welcoming environment. So anybody reading that would paint another picture, like, oh, okay, and think about, and kind of like envision you speaking to clients as they come in, hello, sit down, things like that. Helps maintain HR files. It's really just, I know it's brief, but it doesn't also speak to the value that, that came out of that particular task or responsibility. So here it says assisted, again, this is an action verb, assisted HR manager by updating and maintaining 250 personnel files. This number 250 means that you worked in an environment where you have a large number or like a mid-level company. So that means if you're being considered for maybe an HR generalist role for a company that has this number of, or around this number of employees, they know you've worked in, they see that, and then they have that impression that you've worked in that environment and you can be able to manage the workload that is similar in that kind of environment. So if you see, I hope you understand the picture I'm trying to paint in how you come across and how you market the things that you have done in the past on your resume. So assisted HR manager by updating and maintaining 250 personnel files of active and terminated employees. Okay, so let's move on to cover letter. This is 4:45, so I'm going to give myself roughly 3 to 5 minutes to finish this so that we can take your questions. What's in a cover letter? So a cover letter, people ask me, oh, what's the function of a cover letter? Do people, they actually read it? It's important. It will not guarantee you the job, but it will increase your chances of getting a call back. I think over and above a resume, a cover letter gives you that chance to further market yourself. You are not bound by, your education, your work experience, your skills. You can kind of like pour out your heart and, demonstrate your interest in that role. So I put a hook. You put in an introduction that points to your reason for applying for that role. Just go straight to the point and say, when you put, the address, the date and all that, and you put in the header, you have the code for the role you've applied for, just say, I'm writing to, demonstrate my interest for this role and all that. And then you go to the body, connecting your skills, your interest, and your academic background to what the employee is seeking. You can also articulate why, you should also articulate why you're a good fit for the role. So you can also put another small paragraph that speaks to maybe a project that you have done in the past that is related to maybe any of the skills and competencies that they are looking for. Demonstrating that you have done this in the past or you have the potential of doing it. It's really, giving yourself that extra edge to market yourself. And then you close. let them know that you're open to an interview, you're open to talk more about this, and how you can add value to their organization. I have included 2 YouTube videos. They're not my YouTube videos, but the 2 resources that I found especially helpful for cover letters. And then you can go watch them. They're not very long. I think about 6 to 7 minutes long, thereabouts. And I assure you that you would pick 1 or 2 things there that would help you as you're writing your cover letter. Again, cover letters have a generic cover letter, have a template that once it's time to apply for a role that you're genuinely interested in, you can just edit it, and then you can tailor that cover letter to you. Please stop. If you've been doing that before and you didn't think that it was a big deal, it is a big deal. Stop using generic resumes and cover letters for all the roles. That might be the reason why you're not getting a call back, because you're not tailoring those documents to those roles, against the behaviors and the skills and the competencies and academic background that they are looking for. Okay, final thoughts. I know that this is something that a lot of people don't talk about, and I touched on it some minutes a while back. I said I know that some people are in this room, they're kind of like doing the right things, kind of like they have the information, they have the resources, they have, so they've been applying and kind of like doing the right thing. I want to just encourage you to not to stop. I mean, you really can't stop, For some people, they get in there and there's the element of time and chance, which is a factor that we have no control over. I want to encourage you, don't give up, continue to apply, continue to network, continue to, do the things that you're doing, continue to speak to people. And I know that one day you'll get, the job that you're dreaming of in the organization that you want. Please, I know that we're looking for jobs, but don't just apply to any job. It can be quite counterproductive. Again, if you go back and do a review of all the jobs and all the companies you've applied to, are you just applying for a job because everybody is applying for a job? I've met people that said they've applied to 150 jobs, 200 jobs. And sometimes I'm asking myself, could you really, all those shredded jobs, were you an actual fit, or were you just applying to see which comes through? And it takes a lot of time and effort and energy to apply for these roles. I want to encourage you to be very fair. I know there are bills to be paid and all that, and maybe we're doing several jobs, but in going for the profession that you really want to do, target jobs in that profession and in that industry, and channel your energies there. Don't apply here and there in the hopes that something will come through. Channel your energies towards the industries that you are interested in, towards the roles and the companies that you are interested in. Remember to highlight your transferable skills in your cover letter, attend job fairs, both at school. I know Conestoga does a relatively good job in terms of job fairs and events for students and all of that. So please take advantage of these resources, take advantage of the career center, the career services. They have a lot of resources, they have people, and that is why you paid international fees for all those services. Please make sure you use those services to the maximum. Those people are there for you. Attend events and network. I know we need to pay bills, but please let's not spend all our time. And I say this with all respect, let's not spend all our time working. Let's also spend time in developing ourselves and in building our network. It's when we attend these events, and now that kind of like the pandemic is kind of like we get putting it behind us. I was in Conestoga in the height of the pandemic, so our classes were online. Now I still see emails, I see notifications of events happening in person. I'm just like, I wish I was here at this time. So please go for those events, talk to people. You never can tell what your network will do for you. And here, networking is a lot. I won't say it's everything, but it's a whole lot. So if you are not building your network yet, please begin to build your network. Follow your companies of choice on LinkedIn. This will really help, because eventually when you get called for an interview and then, they are asking you questions, and if you're talking about how much you know what's going on with the company in terms of their press releases, the events they did, or maybe a new initiative or a new product they launched. It will show that you're really interested in the organization. So the companies that you really want to work with, follow them on LinkedIn, put on notifications so that when things are happening or maybe jobs are posted, you see, and then you can, take advantage. And then don't give up. That will be my final. I know it's hard. It's really, really hard. For some people, it's easier. For some people, it's harder. I just want to encourage you to say, don't give up. And with that, I say, thank you for your time and attention. I'm just going to open the floor for questions, and then we'll do our best to respond to them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Auntie Shay, and thank you everyone for listening. Please put your questions in the chat, and I'm sure that Shay is going to be able to respond to it specifically. Before or while we wait for questions to come through, there are a couple of things I also want to add to what Shay has presented. Thank you very much, Shay. Someone has asked for your contact, so if you can please put that in the chat as well, that would be really helpful.
It's on the slide. Okay,
a couple of things that she's highlighted that I really want to put some more. Okay. So a couple of things I want to put some more emphasis on, because we don't recognize how important this is. When you are doing your resume, obviously you're going to be doing it in Word format. Please take the extra few seconds to make it a PDF. Because when you upload it into any format, there is the high probability of it being, the format scattering. And so you present yourselves as not being organized, which you already know. I'm like, if you are disorganized in putting your resume, how much more when you are, as a person actually doing the work. I know Indeed makes it easy for us to put up profiles on Indeed with your CV and all of that, and then they do the quick apply thing. As much as possible, I would advise, please don't. Take your time. If you see the role, don't say, oh, let me just do that quick apply. I know when I first came to Canada, one of the advice I got was that I should apply for 50 jobs every single day. That's a full-time job. How are you doing 50 specific resumes? And that desperation comes through. I read some resumes and I'm like, I see this desperation. Hello, sir. Hello, ma. I really want, no need for sir and ma. It is really casual here. And so once you are being so careless, I've seen somewhere the cover letter is another company, but they're writing and talking to my company. And I'm like, you didn't even take the time to read and check. And that's the first thing you see. You couldn't even adjust the cover letter. How come? So those things matter. The presentation matters a lot. Also, I also want to say that Shay talked about the keywords. That's another way in which you get past an ATS system. Now, you need to take time to do your research about the organization. Most times, most big organizations use an ATS system. So copy the keywords. One trick I usually tell people is, if you just copy that job description, put it in type font 0.5. Then make it invisible. Like the color of the font should be white, not black. Because every single thing is there, it will actually pass through. Because that's what the ATS is. ATS is supposed to track, what your compliance rating is with the specific skills they are looking for. That's a trick. You don't have to do it. But if
please say it again.
Applying
say it again so they can hear.
So the job description, like when they say key responsibilities, what they're looking for in an individual, copy it, use the smallest font size, 0.10, whatever, put it in a small text box somewhere, put it on your resume, make the font size, the font color white. So when we look at it, we don't see it, but it is there on your resume. And that's how it passes through ATS. If it's a small company, they most likely are not using an ATS. It's an individual that is reading your resume. In that instance, please take your time to go through the organization and be clear about what their vision is, what their mission is, what kind of individual are they looking for. Because the recruitment specialists, they're looking at three things. One is your skill sets. Does your skill set match the role? 2 is, does this person match the kind of person we want in our organization? Because it's such a small team. They don't want someone that will just come and mess up their team. So what are the things that, how do you align? And that's where your volunteer experience comes in, And then 3, is this person a growth individual? Is this person looking to stay? Which is where your cover letter comes in. So now I know that, so for some of us who have like 15, 20 years experience, when you're putting relevant experience, there obviously will be some gaps in the years. You can put a small footnote at the bottom of resume explaining, I have only included years with relevant experience for this role. Gaps in my years are explained by jobs that I took which are not relevant to this particular role. So that it doesn't look like you have gaps in your resume that you can't explain. Sheyi also talked about our cover letter. Please put your questions. I'm waiting for questions as I'm giving you all these tips as well. Your cover letter is the way to sell your markets. Even if they didn't ask for it, please include it. It is very important. Your cover letter should highlight 3 things. Number 1, where are you in your current journey? I'm a new Canadian, just graduated from a postgraduate certificate where I also got relevant Canadian experience, eager to begin my journey as in the Canadian labor force. Or I'm a new Canadian with over 20 years experience from international, you don't have to say Nigeria, over 20 years international professional experience at C-suite managerial level, eager to contribute my skills and expertise. So that's the first thing your cover letter is explaining to us. Where are you in your current journey? 2, why do you want to apply for this role, or why do you think you are relevant? Then you take 1 or 2 or 3 things that you have done previously that makes you relevant. I see that you are looking for my previous experience as. Then 3, what are your future plans? Because HR, we know we have what we call cost to hire. It costs us a certain amount of money to hire a specific individual. We don't want to hire you that in 2 months, 3 months, you are gone. So show us that you are going to stay, even if you're going to go in 3 months, but just tell us what's your objective. So we can say, okay, this person is going to stay 1 year, 2 years, or something. And then we know exactly how much effort to put in you. So your cover letter is the opportunity to sell yourself. Please don't joke with it. Please use it. And there's something else that people really miss. With my time as a talent specialist, I see other nationals, especially Canadians, do this a lot. Africans and other immigrants do not do this. Informational interviews. They are like your kryptonite, or your AK-47 to getting that call for an interview. This session is really focused on resume and cover letter. Our next resume clinic is going to be focused on interviewing. So we will get there. But right now, what we want to focus on is how we get you through the door so that you can get interviewed. Now, when we say informational interview, you see a job posting in an organization that you really want. Before you jump and start sending or whatever, look for the contact person. If it's on LinkedIn or so on, I see this position. I would like to get some more information about it. Is it a new role? So some of the questions you want to ask, is it a new role, or was the person staying there? Have they existed? What is the objective of the role, or who is the person reporting to? What's the team size? What will happen once you do that? You know how they say when you want to buy a red car, or you're looking for a red car, because you have red car in your mind, all of a sudden you start seeing red cars. When we are looking at several resumes, but then someone called us and spoke to us and said, oh, we're interested in applying for that role. That name is in our head. When we see that resume, and even though this is not proper, like honestly, we're supposed to spend more time reviewing each resume, but the fact is that we don't. It's just difficult to do. But this name jumps up at us because we heard it before. We heard Sheyi before, we spoke to Rose before. So when we see a Rose, that Rose that was asking me questions, let me even see what is about her. We give you the extra 5-10 minutes on your resume, not even up to 10 minutes. We give you the extra 1-2 minutes to read your resume compared to the 30-second scan that we did for others. So please do an informational interview. it gives you more information to even tailor your resume in line with the information you have gotten so that you stand out from the crowd. Let me see if I have some questions here. Okay. Okay. I do not have any questions so far from the group, and we are 2 minutes past the hour. I want to say thank you to everyone who's joined us today. We will have another session focused on interviewing, and that is going to be the bomb. Trust me, because there's so many things. I see some people mixing up, all the sir, the ma, you're talking, you're looking into the eyes of the people. You're talking too confidently that you end up being aggressive. I know they say be confident. You end up being aggressive rather than confident. Or you become too timid that they're like, oh no, this person. So it's two things, and you all know this. When someone talks fast and wants to, talking a lot, your natural instinct is to distrust that person, isn't it? Because you're like, why are you selling yourself? We call it the snake oil salesman tactic. Once you're talking too much and no, I did it. You're selling yourself too much, and we tend to distrust you. We're looking for who he wants to pull the wool over our eyes. Who does he want to hoodwink? When you are too timid, if you don't believe in yourself, why should we believe in you? So just think about it that, like a guy is chiking a girl. If the guy is not confident, why should the girl want to date you? But if you are too overconfident, the next thing you say, oh, you're arrogant. So there's a fine balance. So I would advise you, please be online for the interview session. The next Resume Clinic with interview session, you're going to be learning a lot. Now, we have our capacity development team, and okay, we have a question. And if you have questions about resume, please feel free to reach out to any of us. You put your questions on the Telegram group. Any one of us will be able to respond to it. What should I do if I see a role that I know very well that I can do and I don't have the Canadian experience? Please apply. Call for an interview, an informational interview, get the information. So one thing is that most times we feel like we have to check all the 10 boxes before we apply. No, if you have 5, because the truth of the matter is every organization knows they have to train you. That's why there's an orientation. So we will train you. We will spend money training you how we do it in our side, even if you've been doing it very well in another organization. But this organization is different from the way you were getting it before. So we will train you. So we really actually want to see your ability to learn, your competence. That's what we're looking out for. So if you have 5 out of the 10, apply. And maybe explain with your cover letter what you've done before and your willingness to learn. In fact, that's part of your objective, to grow and to learn. If you're unable to get an informational interview, OB, so you don't necessarily have to get it from the HR professional. Look for someone who's also worked in that organization. You'll find them on LinkedIn. Send them a chat message to say, I've seen the role I'm interested in. I see you're looking for this, you work for this organization. I have a few questions. Would you be willing to answer it for me? Most likely they will, because Canadians are very nice people. Most likely they will. If they don't, then please go to the company's websites. Read their stories, read testimonials, go to their reviews. Go to their reviews on Google. Find out what other people are saying about them. And that will give you more arsenal to have a better conversation when you are called for an interview. Do I have any other questions? Let me see. Okay, Harrison, we will be waiting for you in Canada. You've been trying to get a job. Don't worry, God is your muscle. Keep trying, don't give up. Don't give up.
So if I may,
I know there's a
Happiness
company
is asking a question.
Okay, I don't see it yet.
Oh, okay. She says
Maybe
for the
she sent you a
professional
private chat.
experience. No, it's not private. Can I put organization I work for within Nigeria? Yes. Yes. Preston was talking about the fact that when you're putting together your cover letter, you say you're international, you have international experience and all of that. Yes. So by all means, the experience that you got is from everybody that has immigrated to Canada and is a professional. They worked in other companies in the countries they came from. So that's what's going to be on their resume. Yeah. So please, by all means, put it. But ensure that when you're applying for a role, it has to be tailored. The work experience you're putting in your resume has to be tailored to the role that you're applying for, not just putting everything. If you worked in 5 companies, you just put everything. I had worked, because of the number of years of experience I had worked in at least 4 organizations. I didn't put the 4. I just put my last, actually put my last 7 years, because out of this, I actually put my last 8 years, because out of those 8 years, 7 years were with one company, but multiple roles. So that's what I did. Because if you want to put all the companies you've worked for, if you've had more than a decade of experience, you're going to spill over into three pages. They don't really need that.
And apart from that, any experience a decade old is old knowledge. It's not relevant in today's times. So you really don't even need it.
Absolutely.
You really do not need it. So anything over 10 years is not relevant anymore. There's technology and knowledge that has advanced far beyond 10 years ago. So you putting it what you did 10 years ago, secondary school that you did, it's not relevant right now. Emmanuel, you have your hand up. Do you want to share something? And I have a few more questions that has come through, which we will take.
Just a quick addition to what you've been saying about what should be included in your resume. I have had cause to kind of regrettably speak to some of my friends who got to put in their CVs, and CVs were okay, but they didn't see the future. When it got to the point of providing references, the whatsoever they had done in their CV could not be verified, and they lost very good jobs. Now, that, please, guys, even if you want to lie, very verifiable lie. Let me use that word, verifiable lie, such that when you say you've done this in this company, at least they're able to get a reference letter or something from that company. Don't just go and blah, 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 blah. Then you go through the process. They've selected you. They've even given you an offer. And now they want to now do you, let's do background check. Everything will just cast. Because that is actually a bad reputation, honestly. That's what I just want to throw in there.
Emma, thank you so much. This is so true. This is so true. I know they say, put in this, please. Please
don't lie. Please
put in information that you can back, because
yes.
they do verification. We write your references and they ask you questions, and they will ask you to provide supervisors that you reported to, and you don't have access. So unless you're giving your guy telling you, and even your guy does not know what to put on your resume or what to say in your interview. So please put in information that you can verify. Now, someone had asked, she was asked to use keywords in her resume. She didn't know how to go about it. So when you say keywords, when you look at the job description, there are specific tasks, responsibilities, and characteristics they are looking for. So it could be attention to detail, it could be fast-paced, high energetic worker used to fast-paced keywords, and replicate it in your resume by saying, I performed, like I use the example, responded promptly to 250 clients within a day. So you know what to do. So someone's asking, what's our take on job hopping? Do you think it can be a hindrance to get your feet into the door of an organization? I will say yes. If you have specific reason for leaving that job, for the company I worked for, I know we would always ask you, the first interview question was, tell us why you left this job. Tell us all the jobs you've done in the last decade and tell us why you left. So if you left because you're finding better opportunity 3 times, you're not communicating to us, so you're not going to be loyal to us. So why should we commit the time, the effort, and the resources to train you and keep you with us when we know that in 3-4 months, your eyes are already looking out for the better opportunity? So please, job hopping is not if you're job hopping because you're trying to pay bills, it should not go on your resume as relevant job experience for that particular role that you now like, that is in line with your career path and objective. Someone said, I have heard from friends that I should remove Nigeria from my CV while applying, even though the companies I've worked for were in Nigeria, to remove the bias from the recruiters. No. Employment law, we are not supposed to discriminate. So you can put Nigeria there on your CV to show, oh, this is where you worked. But again, there is that thing about the Canadian experience. So as much as possible, you want to show what you have done. So in your cover letter, if you're saying, for example, you're a new immigrant to Canada, so you're a new Canadian, you have prior international experience, primarily in Nigeria. However, you have engaged with communities, and that's why I encourage you all to get involved, actively involved in NIROW. You've engaged with communities in Canada that has given you an idea or an introduction into the Canadian labor space, and you're excited to begin and grow your journey as a Canadian employee. That would also explain. So talking about employment law, we don't want to know about your gender. We don't put your picture. It's not, it leads to discrimination, and we can be sued for it. So please don't do it. We don't want to know about your age. So basically the human rights discriminations. Don't tell us about your gender. Don't tell us about your ethnicity. Don't tell us about your marital family status. Don't tell us about your age. Don't tell us about all of that. If you give us that information, it increases our risk of bias and discrimination, and it's not actually allowed. So don't put your pictures and all of that.
Absolutely. I want to speak to Rose's question. Rose, you shouldn't be fighting with your manager. So, but I know that there are circumstances where most times when people leave organizations, they leave the managers, they don't leave the organization. So it's the employee experience with your manager is not so great, and you decide that you want to leave. There are really creative ways that you can use to share that experience. So I don't know the particular situation, but if you can just say, maybe my values were not, my values and the values of the organization were not in line anymore. There was some conflict, and I would go in because I'm protecting the privacy of the organization. I would decline to share. So you can be very creative and professional by, you make yourself look good. You also make your ex-employer look good, even though the people left on bad terms. In terms of the references, you can, depending on the recruitment experience you have the recruiter, when they say, you need to provide references, you can let them know that, because remember what I said about, our values conflicting, it is unlikely that you will get a response from, is it okay if I provide another reference? So you can be proactive about, managing that situation so that you are on the right side of the tracks, okay? But no matter what you do, please, there are also ways, again, because of this capability building session, I'm sure that there will be sessions down the line when we're talking about how to, manage your manager, how to, behave, how to interact, especially as new immigrants in the Canadian work environment. So most of the things that happen back in Nigeria don't really obtain here, like in the way it obtained in Nigeria. Some of them obtain, but not in the way it was obtaining back in Nigeria. So yes, you need to skill and learn some things in that area. So again, it's all about how you explain the situation. You're not going to come into the interview and bash your manager, because they're going to say, so if we employ you, you're going to be bashing your manager and people around you as well. So it's also about how you manage that conversation and that question when you are asked, why did you leave? You talk about other reasons. There are other reasons why you can, it doesn't have to be, I had a fight with my manager.
Thank you very much. So Esther is asking, after explaining the job role included in the organization, what do you think one should say more? Do you think one should talk about past experiences in Nigeria? So earlier on, I'm not sure, Esther, if you started from the beginning of the session, I had mentioned including an e-portfolio. I find that this is extremely helpful because all the information we want to give about the experiences we've done will not fit into the 2-page standard Canadian resume. So once you have put in the highlights, your responsibility and task and results achieved within the job roles, keeping it as brief as possible, try not to do between more than 4.4 to 5 bullet points per role. Now, remember I said, okay, we might not have been there in the beginning. I said that some people share their LinkedIn profile. So like me, I've been a facilitator. My background is in economics, entrepreneurship, human resource, and public speaking. Now, if you look at my LinkedIn profile, I look like Jill of all trades because I've done a lot. But if I'm applying for a specific role, it might just call on my entrepreneurship and public speaking experience. And that's the only bit I will highlight. I won't send you to my LinkedIn profile because you will see all of that and you'll be like, where is this? Who is this one? Why is she all over the place? Rather, I have an e-portfolio, which is just simple. It's just Dropbox. You can decide to use a Gmail drive that gives specific information about what I did within that role, transferable skills to the role I'm looking for, and if there are write-ups or experience or public posts about me in that setting, I also include in that e-portfolio. And that is what I put on my resume, that link. So I am directing you to information that's relevant to that role that I have controlled. Because I've given you that, the probability of you Googling me is less. Most people, HR people, recruitment people, trust me, if you don't give us a LinkedIn profile, which you will see, we would Google you if we're really interested about you. So take time to Google yourself. What do you see? I believe that some people, there should be some level of privacy as well. When you Google yourself, your Instagram, Facebook, all those posts will come up. So you want to be sure that all those things, your posts and everything. So for example, here we all know that here there's issue with gender expressions, not issues that, it's not like back home now that is 14 years. Here, they are free. So if you went and made a post that you thought was funny on your Facebook page, on your Twitter, that is against that already shows you are someone that is discriminatory. So we would highlight that and we say, based on this, we're not even calling you for an interview, right? But if I Google you, I don't find you online, that's fine. So for me, I deliberately misspelled my name on Facebook and Instagram and everything. So you won't find those posts. What you might find is my LinkedIn profile. But remember, I've already given you my portfolio. So all the information you need to know about my competence for this role is in that portfolio. Why are you Googling me again? Yeah. But if you don't give me that, and I really want to find out a bit more about this person that sounds interesting, I'm going to Google you. And I might not, because you did not control it, I might not like what I see. And based on what I see, I'm really trying to get 10 people down to 3. I would be happy to tell you bye. Remember, what we're trying to do is get your foot into the door so that you get called for an interview.
So, Harrison, that's a separate session.
Exactly. It's not a LinkedIn portfolio unless you want to have 10 LinkedIn pages. I said the portfolio is like, call it your briefcase that has information, briefcase, you change the things inside. So I use Dropbox. It's just an online cloud storage system. You can use Google Drive. Some people have specialized websites that talks about them, their own websites, and they will have a web page that is relevant to that. So you can take it as advanced or as basic as you want.
Basic.
Wow, 20 minutes passed. We can keep going on and on. But thank you so much. This has been so engaging. If I'm to go with the feedback from the room, I believe that we've learned a lot. We've shared a lot of valuable information. I really want to thank everybody for being part of this session and, giving us your attention and giving us questions, because I believe that we're all learning. Maybe the question you asked, someone wanted to ask it, but now you've asked it, they've learned from it. So thank you all. I encourage you, whenever we have sessions like this, even if you feel, I already know, it's still good to come and be part of it, because no information is wasted, right? You can come in, find out something new and, grow from it. Some people are already looking for me on LinkedIn and are following me. Now, what for you people say?
Same here.
I'm already getting notifications. Anyway, thank you all very much. We will keep this up. And again, remember, if you have any questions, put it on the Telegram group. The capacity development team will be happy to support you. And we believe that the Nigerian community is really going to thrive. Anna, the recorded session will be sent via email to all our registered members. So I hope you're a registered member or registered, not that you're on the Telegram group, registered that you have subscribed to our website. Before we say paid member, they will remove my head. But if you have paid, it's not bad too. Let's get this community growing. Thank you all. Have a lovely rest of your evening. God bless you. Shay, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Bye, everybody.